Okay, so I lied. I lied on Friday's show. I didn't stay home. I think it's clear I
A little
didn't.
bit.
Yeah. Flew down to Trinity. Made those plans Thursday late night. Used some points, used some cash, and I said it in the press conference. And if it hasn't already been uploaded, it will be. Just when we do a travel weekend, trying to catch back up with life when I get to the other end of it is never easy, and so that's usually what causes delays on getting production out. But we'll get those press conferences out because I don't know if they've all been uploaded by the schools. But anyway, Thursday night, made the plans, worked it out. Friday, I was flying from Newark to San Antonio via Atlanta, and as I'm driving down, it's snowing. First snow of the season, of course, in this area. And the flight is delayed going to Atlanta enough that I would have missed my connection in Atlanta. So I call up Delta 3 times because I got cut off twice when I was trying to maybe just stay overnight in Atlanta and fly over in the morning over to San Antonio, at least get halfway there so that I could get there early enough not to miss any of the game. And finally, the last person said, I can get you on the earlier flight that will make the connection, except for the fact I'm racing now, legally on the speed limit, of course, to get to Newark. Yes. And so I have parking pre-booked. I can't find the parking lot I pre-booked. Waze and everything else couldn't find the parking lot. So what do?
Of course.
I basically go into Newark's main parking lot, parking garage, and, well, actually I didn't. I went into the rental car facility by accident because the sign is just so bad there. Okay, so I get out of the rental car facility. Now, with only 35 minutes to go before that door is going to close, thank God I didn't have luggage to check. Get into the facility, $65 a day parking for basically what would become 3 days. But you know what? Okay, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound at this point. Park, get in the airport. Sure enough, the only part of my trip that it happened, security kicks my bag over for a manual inspection. I'm like, oh my God. So, very nice security person at TSA went through it real quick and got me over. I had 12 minutes left before door closed, got on the flight. When I hit down in Atlanta, I finally let Trinity know, hey, can I have a press pass for tomorrow? And Justin Parker down there very quickly responded, you're on the list, you're all good. And we made it happen. But that was one of the more daunting cover of night type of trips that I've ever had to do here for In the Huddle for coverage. And well worth it because we have great friends down in San Antonio and in Belton. And it was a great game. It really was. It did look at for the first, 25 minutes or so. It was a little lopsided, but Trinity made it a great game. And Mary Hardin Baylor, more power to them. It looks like they have a quarterback that we'll talk a little bit more about that's for real right now. And we'll see how it plays out against Hardin Simmons, Part 3, as we call it. How'd the coverage look to you from your home in Orlando there as you were just resting comfortably?
The videos looked great. I mean, and it was interesting trying to see, all these games on ESPN Plus for the first time. For the most part, went without a hitch, although there were a few technical difficulties with the Whitworth game later on in the day, which was kind of a pain.
And Kings. Kings definitely did not get the memo on that one.
There were some pretty good games, so you gotta appreciate that.
Absolutely. So we're gonna talk about those games. So we got a lot of news to talk about. Keystone, where are they going to be after this year, if anywhere? Let's get to the show here and make it happen. This is season 17, our week 11. No, check that week 12 preview show because there's 11 weeks of the regular season plus what this 12. Okay, week 12 preview show of In the Huddle. JB, before we go very much further here, some sad news. The Utica community is mourning the loss of James Salas, I believe is the pronunciation of his last name. A young man who was in critical condition after an off-campus accident occurred, and he did pass away eventually. I know the Utica community had kind of a 1-2 punch, especially the football community, not getting into the bowl game, but that's meaningless at the end of the day when you lose one of your own the way they did. And so we want to send our condolences to the Utica Pioneers and the Utica community for the loss. James was from Long Island, and obviously when he was in critical condition, GoFundMe was set up, raising tens of thousands of dollars. And it is still up for obviously other reasons now, funeral expenses and everything else that goes with this. Our condolences. You always have some great words in moments like these. So, I know you saw this and you were just like devastated as much as I was.
Yeah, well, this is every parent's worst nightmare, and but unfortunately, sometimes these things happen, and you just have to hope that the family, the extended family, not just the Salas family, but the Pioneers, this brotherhood, the team can try to help support the Salas family going through this horrible time. It's going to be probably even tougher with the holidays here. We're recording the day before Thanksgiving. Christmas is around the corner. It is a time for family and for reunions and getting back together, and their table will have an empty seat, which will be hard for them to fill. But we just have to hang on to the happy memories of the days of playing football and better times, and hopefully they can celebrate his life as much as mourn his loss. That's really, I think, all you can say.
Yeah, take nothing for granted is the reminder here. James Salas, gone way too soon, a member of the Utica University football family. We have to talk football. That's our job here at this point, despite having to share that news. And it was a good football weekend. And a reminder again that it's a good getaway from some of the more mundane aspects of life or depressing aspects of life. The highs and lows of football, the brotherhood, and everything else. It's something else to see. The level of competition we saw in an opening round, some teams that supposedly didn't belong in here didn't fare so well. Some did. Some actually are proving, we do belong in this process ultimately. And we also had some bowl games for some of the teams that maybe felt they deserved a chance. And they're proving that, they were worthy of it and should have maybe been considered ultimately. We're going to go through all those things in this show. Again, talking about Keystone, before we get to your 30,000-foot view, they are going to potentially, on December 31st, lose their accreditation from Middle States. They are appealing. Whether or not this affects how the Landmark Conference treats them or handles them is yet to be seen. I believe there's meetings in December and February that will determine that and determine the schedule for football next season. There's probably a schedule written with and without them, but the problem is that means that they're going to have one last game potentially if Keystone is not functioning as a full university able to field a football team. And so we don't know how this is going to play out. I will say this much, the reactions on our post about this were clear that a lot of people didn't understand or know a lot of the things that were in the show cause ultimately that was released by Middle States. And there's trouble on the horizon. There's no doubt, because there is doubt about this university, unfortunately, or college functioning as such down the line, able to overcome some of the issues they had from a failed merger, it sounded like, or purchase, and everything else. We don't wish that upon them. It is our job to report the news here and we hope they can make it out of this. They started up a football program from scratch and have really done decently well in that process. But the reminder here, JB, is that football can't always save a college or university that's in trouble or, small in terms of getting that enrollment. I think that we're getting a good proof of that here, that it's not always the antidote to, some of the other issues you might have at your school. Your thoughts, and feel free to go right into your 30,000-foot view of Week 12.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been seeing this as a repercussion of the COVID era for a few years now. A lot of these smaller private institutions just don't have the funding to stay alive. And with some of the changes in I think the class of 25 for high school is the start of what's been referred to as the enrollment cliff. There's going to be less kids applying to college. There's going to be less guys going to college. So schools that are, tuition dependent are going to be stretched even more so. And when we've seen the cost of the administrative side, all the salaries for all these different positions and the deans and the administration and the services, all this stuff, it adds up. And for a nonprofit institution, there's only so far you can go before you have to eventually, turn the lights out if you can't, keep the tuition dollars coming in. So it's something, unfortunately, Keystone won't be the last of these, I'm afraid. It's just the latest. So looking at the first round, we had some blowouts, but we also had some pretty competitive close games. Frank and I kind of stuck to the chalk and went 6-2 on our predictions, but our bowl predictions, not so good. A lot of the favorites that we thought were the better teams just either decided that their season was over, or the teams that they were playing just wanted it more. Who knows?
Wait, whoa, timeout being called over here. I picked up 2 games on you. We'll show the slide now. We'll jump this to the top because often we jump it to the bottom. But I get 2 games on you. I'm only 5 behind, so I think it went just perfectly fine. The bowls and everything else that we predicted. I think you're speaking for you at this point, buddy boy. No, look.
It's funny, we got the ECAC bowls right, but then everything else was sort of a crapshoot. It was kind of funny. It was like all over the place.
Well, who the hell would think Hanover's going to pull one on Wabash in that atmosphere? Okay, I mean, that's just crazy. And we're going to see that game, among others, obviously, in Crunchtime. And if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do this.
This is crunch time for the 2024 Division III college football season's first round of playoffs and bowls. We've made it easier for your hands since you don't have 12 fingers. Many people wondered what we do. Let's start out with the playoffs. Yes, let's start out with the playoffs. And Northwestern of Minnesota at La Crosse in the first quarter, a minute and a half into the game. Jack Janke gets a 36-yard touchdown pass from Kyle Haas to make it 7-0 La Crosse. The Eagles would continue 4 minutes later as Janke gets another 37-yard touchdown pass, this time from Kyle Haas. 14-0, La Crosse leading the game. We'll go to the second quarter, 3.5 minutes into it. Wyatt Lemoyne, a 74-yard touchdown pass from Kyle Haas. They are rolling now, 24-0, La Crosse leading. Northwestern tries to make a game of it. 6.5 minutes left, second quarter. Sivert Klefsas gets a 17-yard touchdown run, 24-7. But La Crosse answers just 2 minutes later. Gabe Lynch with his 3-yard touchdown run makes it 31-7. And the final would be a very distant 59-14, La Crosse winning the game. Caden Cantrell from Northwestern, 17 for 29, 169 yards, 1 passing touchdown. Janke has 4 receptions, 83 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Co at Bethel, they got the location right, and maybe it affected the game. Let's see here. Second quarter, 10:19 left. Aaron Ellingston, an 8-yard touchdown pass from Cooper Drews, 14-7. Bethel leading the game. But 2 minutes later, Baron Lentz gets his 3-yard scoop and score to make it 14-13, extra point miss, so Bethel's still leading. 2:40 left, second quarter. It is Aaron Ellingson, 4-yard touchdown run this time to make it 21-13, Bethel leading the game. A minute 20 later, though, Co responds. Jerron centers a 37-yard touchdown pass from Brady Kelly, 21-20, still Bethel's lead at halftime. We'll go midway through the third quarter. Cooper Drews, a 3-yard touchdown run, extends the lead to 8 points in favor of Bethel. But then, with 2:42 left in the third quarter, Brady Kelly sacked and fumbles. It was forced by Jacob Holman and recovered by Caden DeWall, and it leads to, 2 minutes later, Hugo Cifuentes getting a 27-yard field goal to make it 31-20 Bethel. Looks like they're rolling here, but in the fourth quarter, 6:29 left, centers a 4-yard touchdown pass from Kelly, gets to them within 5 points, 2-point conversion miss, 31-26. Bethel still leading. Co gets the ball back at their 3-yard line with 2:10 left. They get about 15 yards, but on 4th and 5, Brady Kelly is incomplete, and that would do it. The final score was 31-26, Bethel winning the game. Centers, 8 catches, 121 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Cooper Drews, 38 for 53, my goodness, 268 yards, 1 passing touchdown, and an interception for Bethel. We'll continue here with Alfred State at Endicott. Second quarter, 5:22. The goals, Brian Metier gets a 1-yard touchdown run. It's 9-0, Endicott leading the game. Then second quarter, 6 seconds left. Jason Little, a 6-yard touchdown pass from Clayton Marangi, makes it 16-0. They would just keep pouring it on with Endicott. 1:09 left third quarter. Here's Zach Twardowski's 25-yard pick 6 to make it 23-0 in favor of Endicott. We'll continue fourth quarter, 12:34 left. Follow Clayton Marangi here because I couldn't see it initially. He held on to the ball for a 64-yard touchdown run to make it 30-0 at that point in time. Final score, Endicott wins 44-0. Justin Horvath for Alfred State, 16 for 35, 97 yards, 2 interceptions. Michael O'Brien for Endicott, 2 rushing touchdowns. And Zach Twardowski, you saw the pick 6 in our clips there. Pomona Pitzer at Whitworth. We had to kind of give you limited action here because we didn't have all the video, but first quarter, 5:35 left. Dawson Tobeck from Whitworth gets a 26-yard touchdown pass from Ryan Blair to make it 14-3, Whitworth leading. We'll go up to the fourth quarter by requirement because of no video. And Whitworth has Dawson Tobeck getting a 4-yard touchdown pass from Blair to make it 21-10, so they led by 11 at this point. 6 minutes later, though, Jack Walker of Pomona Pitzer gets a 36-yard field goal to make it 1-possession game, 21-13. 7:21 left in the game. You're going to see here, unfortunately for Whitworth, Ryan Blair has his pass completed to Kalen Johnson, but fumbled, and Pomona Pitzer's Duncan Lee recovers it, gives them a chance, but it was a 3-and-out, forcing a punt. Later on, it's ultimately a 4th and 6 play here for Pomona Pitzer, and they get 20 yards on it to stay alive, first down, but with 13 seconds left in the 13th play of this drive, it is a 3rd and 10, and it is intercepted by Omari Williams by Whitworth. And boy, this was closer than I thought it would be, as Whitworth has to hold on with that interception, 21-13. Grady Russo from Pomona Pitzer, 417 total yards, 1 passing touchdown, interception. Ryan Blair from Whitworth, 28 for 37, 303 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. JB, I'm going to take a little breather here while you kind of look at these games, anything that sticks out to you, and also maybe highlight some of the next round games that we see here on the right side of the screen.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said before, we had some close calls, we had some blowouts. I mean, obviously the lacrosse and Endicott games, not really competitive. Those teams are in the top 25 for a reason, although I guess lacrosse may technically not be there yet. Although, let me see, where we, yeah, no, they're number 20. So, yeah, so they won by wide margins. But yeah, the Bethel Co game was probably one of the best ones of the entire weekend. Great defensive effort by the Royals. We'll be talking more about that in a little bit. And then, yeah, Whitworth still finding ways to win. Now they have to go to Chicago, Naperville, and play North Central. That could be a rough one. We'll see. Aurora and Hope could be one of the better second round games. 2 great teams there. I know that there was some talk about Mass Dartmouth at Springfield, kind of the battle of Massachusetts, and then we have the rematch of Endicott at Cortland coming up as well. Lacrosse at St. John's promises to be a great one. Hobart at Susquehanna was a game I was hoping to get to, but with the holiday traffic and everything going on, it was just too far out for me to make the trip. But Platteville at Wartburg, and then Lake Forest at Bethel, with the little asterisks around the fact that I guess if you don't have a closed-in press box for coaches, you get dinged by the NCAA. So even though they're the higher seed, they will be going on the road to Minnesota to play the Royals.
Let's go to the other side of things here and look at the 4 other games that were played on Saturday, starting with Ursinus at Kings in this situation because of the way the rankings worked out. 18 seconds left first quarter. Look at this as Brendan Robinson cannot get out of the end zone. It's a safety. Ursinus leads as a result 5-0 at that point in time. 9:41 left second quarter. Look at this, pouring it on. Ursinus is Cameron Dennis. A 17-yard touchdown pass from Jalen Bradford makes it 12-0. And the Bears are rolling, but not for long. 3:17 left second quarter. Kings has Russell Minor Shaw getting a 1-yard touchdown run for a 12-7 deficit at that point for Kings. But before halftime, it's Caval Clark getting its 36-yard touchdown pass from Minor Shaw. 13-12, Kings leads at halftime. Third quarter, Ursinus' Mark Clayton gets his 48-yard pick six. 19-13, Ursinus leading the game again. Eventually, we'd head into the quarter with Ursinus leading 22-19. 9:23 left. Connor Walsh from Kings gets a 9-yard touchdown pass from Russell Minor Shaw. 25-22, Kings leads. 8:37 left in the fourth quarter. Look at this. Jalen Bradford intercepted by Joaquin McElroy, and Kings would end up punting. Ursinus gets the ball back. Cameron Dennis with 6:13 left gets a 21-yard touchdown pass from Bradford. Ursinus takes that 29-25 lead. Teams would trade punts one more time, but with 25 seconds left, Kings' Mike DiGregorio gets a 9-yard touchdown pass from Russell Minor Shaw. 32-29, Kings takes the lead. And here's the final play of the game as Bradford is complete to Cameron Dennis. They try to pitch it around and pitch it around. Goes on for a little while here. Ultimately, it is not to be. Kings wins this game in a thriller, 32-29. Jalen Bradford from Ursinus, 23 for 38, 293 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and an interception. Russell Minor Shaw from Kings, 319 total yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. Let's also go to Mount St. Joseph at John Carroll. A minute 40 into the first quarter, Tyron Montgomery gets an 8-yard touchdown run, make it 10-0, John Carroll leading. Second quarter, 4:58 left. Nick Semptenfelter, we didn't know if he'd be playing much in this game after it looked like he endured an injury early on, but he gets a 12-yard pass to Quincy Newsom for the touchdown, 17-0, John Carroll leading. 1:56 left second quarter, Montgomery from Semptenfelter. 24-0 in this 2-yard touchdown pass. Then look at this defense by John Carroll. 1:32 left, so 24 seconds later, Tyler Prather, intercepted by Kevin Doyle, and just 6 seconds later, Semptenfelter finds Kenny Rawls for an 18-yard touchdown pass. 31-0 at halftime, 52-7 final. John Carroll wins the game. For Mount St. Joseph, Eli Aston had 7 catches, 96 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. But Nick Semptenfelter, 14 for 17, 155 yards, 5 passing touchdowns on the day. Next up, the game I attended and covered, Mary Hardin-Baylor at Trinity. First quarter, 4:08 left. Cameron Ferguson, a 4-yard touchdown run, gives Mary Hardin-Baylor a 7-0 lead. Then, as it looked like Trinity was ready to respond, you can see the screen pass with 11:53 left in the first half, right back to Johnny Milo, and it is, wait a minute, who has the ball? And when you look at the slowed down version, Milo fumbles, and Duran Hill somehow gets that ball inbounds. An amazing play by him to thwart the effort for the tie. And this eventually led to, in the second quarter, 9:43 left, Rainius Daramola, a 32-yard touchdown pass from Jake Wright. Spoke about him earlier. 14-0 now, Mary Hardin-Baylor leads, but Trinity rallies back. 1:54 left, second quarter, Ryan back with a 1-yard touchdown run. 14-6 with the blocked extra point. Second quarter, 48 seconds left. Alejandro Tavares, a 34-yard touchdown pass from Ryan back. Where is it? Well, again, take a look here. It looks like his arm had protected the ball as the impact jostled it, but it never hits the ground. 14-12, again, as the extra point is no good. That's halftime score. Third quarter, 7:55 left. Jake Wright to Tyler Woods. 5 yards. Makes it 21-12, a 9-point lead by Mary Hardin-Baylor. Fourth quarter will go to 42 seconds into it. Alejandro Tavares again from back. 1-yard touchdown pass, 21-19 at that point. And then with 6:56 left in the fourth quarter, Tyler Huddle makes amends for the misses and blocks and everything else going on in this game with a 43-yard field goal that's good. It's Trinity's first lead of the game, 22-21. 1:47 left, though, in the fourth quarter. You can see the ending of this 11-play drive by Mary Hardin-Baylor as an Asa Osborne 1-yard touchdown run, 29-22. About 20 seconds left in this game. 4th and 6 from the Trinity 41. Rhinebeck completes a 16-yard pass to Winston Hutchinson, trying to get the go-ahead score late here. But you'll see a clearly injured Ryan Back intercepted by Dorian Hill, that's Duran's younger brother, and that ends the game. What a game. Mary Hardin-Baylor wins 29-22. Ryan Back for Trinity, 22 for 39, 292 yards, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdowns, and an interception. Asa Osborne, 15 carries, 71 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Finally in the playoffs, Maryville at Berry. 3:12 left in the first quarter. Brandon Cade, a 1-yard touchdown run, gives Berry a 6-0 lead, but Maryville fights back with 59 seconds left first quarter. Brock Skelton, a 22-yard touchdown pass from Bryson Rollins, 7-6. Maryville with the lead. Second quarter, 1:55 left. It's Kamari Smith, 8-yard touchdown pass from Christian Lewis, 13-7. And then in the third quarter, 42 seconds left, Trey Richards gets a 40-yard field goal, 16-7. So a 9-point lead going into the fourth, but Maryville rallies back. 8:59 left, fourth quarter. Bryson Claiborne, a 5-yard touchdown run, 16-14. And then just a minute and a half later, you'll see Christian Lewis intercepted by Devon White here. And that's a major play because it eventually leads to this Bryson Claiborne 7-yard touchdown run with 5:33 left. Maryville leading the game for the first time since 7-6 earlier in the game. Fourth quarter, 2:22 left. On 3rd and 20, a sack for a 12-yard loss. That's Jordan Lacey with that sack, and they would be forced to punt. Berry would be. Eventually, 1:52 left, 3rd and 10 for Maryville. Bryson Rollins complete for 53 yards to Steph Carter Jr., and that would do it. Maryville wins this game in kind of a shocker to many folks, 20-16. Brandon Cade, 27 carries, 58 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Bryson Claiborne, 21 carries, 97 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And the Maryville defense with 3 interceptions on the day. JB, I know the Maryville folks are going to be like, it didn't shock us, but let's be honest here. Yeah. That was not an expected result for many people out there.
No, it wasn't, and I actually watched most of that game in between sort of trying to catch a bunch of others, and yeah, every time it looked like, you know, Berry was about to sort of take the next step and put this one away, Maryville would just come up with, you know, key plays at sort of the right time, and they forced some turnovers that really ended up hurting the Vikings. You know, this side of the bracket was definitely the more competitive one. Lots of close games. You could see a touchdown, 4 points, 3 points. I mean, other than the John Carroll, you know, blowout of MSJ, this was a much more compelling side of things. And so, yeah, congratulations to Maryville. That win gives them a chance to go out to Indiana to play DePaul. We'll see how they fare out there. We've got Grove City at Hopkins, Texas Lutheran at Linfield, and then for the third time, and I think this is the first time ever we've seen this in a single season, Game 3 of Mary Hardin-Baylor at Hardin-Simmons. So that should be another good one. The first two certainly were, so, well, one of them was. I guess the first one really wasn't that close, so we'll forget about that. And in the lower half of the bracket, we've got W&J going to Randolph-Macon. That should be a great game. Kings at Salisbury, not the matchup we expected with you know, the sort of the upset of your Sinus from the Centennial, but hey, you know, with this Russell Minor Shaw guy, you know, the Monarchs have a chance. So we'll see what happens. Center goes to Carnegie Mellon, and then speaking of rematches, we got John Carroll at Mount Union for the second time this season. But this time it seems like, you know, this Blue Streaks team is a lot more loaded and has more firepower than they did in week 3 when they first played the Purple Raiders. So upsets may be the theme of this weekend. We'll see.
Let's do a little bit of bowling, a bowl blitz time here, as we have 4 bowls to cover in depth, and then we'll look at the rest of them at that point, or after that point. First, Stevenson at Morrisville State, and we'll start first quarter, 2:57 left. Morrisville's Isaac Sylvain gets a 13-yard touchdown run to make it 14-0. Morrisville, halftime will be 14-3. Third quarter, first play into it. It is Omar Jarvis from Morrisville with an 83-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. I speak slowly so we can get the entire run into this package. 21-3, Morrisville leads the game, and I'll flip my page slowly. I think he's in the end zone now. Third quarter, 4:50 left. Stevenson comes back. Dylan Johnson, a 5-yard touchdown pass from Nair Wilson. 21-10 at that point, Morrisville leading. Fourth quarter, 3 minutes, 50 seconds into it, Jordan Adams, a 1-yard touchdown run, 21-18. Stevenson will get the ball back here with 1:32 left, with 50 seconds left, 4th and 1, and ultimately it's a fumble. I think you could call it even a sack or an 8-yard loss or whatever you want to call it. Morrisville's defense steps up big time on that 4th and 1 play to end the game effectively and win 21-18. Jackson Wilson in this ECAC Bowl game, 10 for 19, 120 yards, 1 passing touchdown and an interception for Stevenson. For Morrisville, Isaac Sylvain, 24 rushes, 108 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Let's go to Husson versus Maritime in the first ever Fusion Bowl. 1:07 left first quarter. Husson's Shaquan Miles gets a 6-yard touchdown pass from Max Clark. 14-7 at that point in favor of Husson. But Maritime responds. 52 seconds left third quarter. Luke Caliendo with a 15-yard touchdown pass from Steven Stassi make it 14 apiece. Then 5:08 left fourth quarter. Ian Durda, a 6-yard touchdown pass from Stassi, makes it 21-14 Maritime. Right around the 2-minute mark, fourth quarter, Max Clark is incomplete on 4th and 17 in an attempt to get Husson back here, and that would do it as Maritime wins the Fusion Bowl 21-14. Jaquan Miles for Husson, 2 catches, 46 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Stassi, 14 for 29, 132 yards, and 2 passing touchdowns. We'll go to the Open Doors Bowl series as Hanover takes on Wabash. Heading into the fourth quarter, Wabash was leading 7-3. 12:51 left in that fourth quarter. Brody Rucker, a 25-yard field goal, makes it 10-3, Wabash with the lead. Then, 2 minutes later, Austin Apple gets a 45-yard touchdown run to tie the game by Hanover here, 10 apiece. Fourth quarter, 1:03 left. You'll see Brody Rucker try from 46 yards out this field goal, and it is no good. With 1:03 left, Hanover gets the ball back, moves it downfield. A chance for a walk-off field goal by Clint Hearn from 38 yards is good. They carry him off the field. Clint Hearn, what a day just to have that big moment, 13-10. Hanover wins the Open Doors Bowl. Or one of those Open Doors Bowls, I should say. Brand Campbell from Wabash, 16 for 27, 189 yards, and an interception. Clint Hearn, 2 for 3 on field goals, including that 38-yard game winner. Congratulations to him. UW Stout versus Wheaton in the Isthmus Bowl. And we will go here a minute and a half into the second quarter. Breck Peacock for Wheaton gets a 39-yard touchdown pass from Mark Fercucci to make it 21-0, Wheaton leading. The Thunder continue 5 minutes later as Fercucci gets a 7-yard touchdown run, 28-0. This is over, right? Well, okay, hold on. 5 minutes later, Adam Moen, a 2-yard touchdown run for Stout, narrows it to 28-7. Luke Cool gets a field goal for halftime. Coolfoot Luke makes it 28-10. So we'll go to third quarter, 4:22 left. Stout's Wraith Bauer, 11-yard touchdown pass from Moen, makes it 28-17. Okay, getting interesting now. Fourth quarter, 11:27 left. Zach Dewhurst, a 2-yard touchdown pass from Moen. Now it's close, 28-23, a 5-point game at that point in time. That's a conversion, it's no good. 2 minutes later, Wheaton's Giovanni Weeks gets a 1-yard touchdown run. Fitting that he kind of puts this game away for his team, 35-23. You'll see here about 5 minutes later as Fercucci can't get out of the end zone, or fumbles the ball. All kinds of bad things are happening here for safety ultimately. 35-25, so Stout still with a chance. 2 minutes later, it is Carter Zazulski from Moen, 35-32 at that point. So after the 2-minute timeout, Wheaton needs one more first down, and on 3rd and 2, there he is, Giovanni Weeks, getting the 2 yards, getting the first down, and ending the game. And what a career he ends as well for Wheaton. 35-32, they win the Isthmus Bowl. Adam Owen from Stout, 309 total yards, 3 passing, 1 rushing touchdowns. Mark Fercucci for Wheaton, 390 yards, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdown on the day. You got to love the moment for Giovanni Weeks, okay? He's had such a career in the shadows of the whole North Central story and everything else. And, you know, to be able to go away at least with a bowl win. This is why the bowls matter, in addition to the extra week of practice and all that stuff. Somebody like Giovanni Weeks deserves to have that kind of moment at the end of such a career, and he gets that. What else did we have in the bowls?
Well, in the ECACs, we saw a couple of lopsided scores, although to be fair, the Rochester-Brockport game was a lot closer earlier on than the final kind of gives way here. But Westcon Wolves won 45-14 over Alfred. Brockport pulls away 42-23. In the Max Centennial Series, looks like the Centennial takes it 2-1 with Franklin and Marshall and Muhlenberg winning their games. But hey, FDU Florham, they finally break that losing streak that they kind of been on at the end of the season with a very convincing 49-14 win over Dickinson. So congratulations to FDU on winning that Devil's Bowl. We had the Mustang Bowl, we had the Devil's Bowl, all sorts of fun stuff going on. The other Open Doors Bowl game was won by Westminster, which was a bit of a surprise. The way Marietta had played John Carroll and Mount Union, we thought that they were one of these OAC powers. Well, look at that. It's a big win for the Pack. It says a lot, and especially for a conference that doesn't get to play out-of-conference games because of how they're stacked up. This is a big win for them, showing that the fourth-place team in their league is better than the effectively third-place team from the OAC, which a lot of people have always said is one of the best conferences out there. So there you go. In the Chesapeake Bowl series, we had Washington and Lee and Moravian win their games pretty handily. And then finally in the Lakefront Bowl, St. Norbert edges Monmouth 20-14. Now, I think that was one of the games that you picked correctly, Frank. I certainly didn't pick too many of these bowl games correctly, but hey, it was fun to have some extra. I think there was 13 games going on, and then we also had the Wittenberg makeup game against Hiram, which was a win for the Tigers. So that was officially the last regular season game of 2024.
And that is the last thing we'll talk about, at least in crunch time, for week number 12 of the 2024 Division III college football season, which was first round and also bowls. JB, it is time for MVPs, and you have some good MVPs here, that's for sure. Somebody, or a couple of people that I definitely gave some kudos to. Actually, all three of them I gave some kudos to in crunch time for good reasons. Why don't you tell folks who they are and why you have them as your MVPs?
Well, it's funny, too, because I did this on Sunday before I heard ATN, and of course, Pat and Greg picked two of these three guys, which is kind of ironic. But when you look at the big picture of how the playoffs and everything went this weekend, it's hard not to acknowledge quarterback Russell Minor-Shaw from Kings. The 300-plus total yards, the 4 touchdowns was a big reason why his team effectively upset your Sinus. That was a game that I don't think a lot of people had called correctly, so you had to give him the shout-out for that. So he was my offensive MVP. On the flip side, defensively, Caden DeWall had like 3.5 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss, 9 total tackles. He was just a beast on defense for Bethel in that 5-point game against Co. So once again, had to give him our version of the game ball, the defensive MVP.
Wait a minute, that kid with the big smile and everything looks like he's just Joe Cool, young guy there. He had 3.5 sacks. He was a monster out there. It doesn't look like that fits. No, looks like a clean cut kid. The kind you want to date your daughter or whatever, but apparently this guy is a monster on the gridiron, so watch out for him. And I'm pretty sure no relation to Coach DeWall from Hobart, but just a ironic last name there. And then finally, Clint Hearn, sort of the hero of the Open Doors Bowl with the game-winning 38-yard field goal. He actually missed one earlier and then made one as well. So it's always exciting when you have a trophy game with a walk-off field goal. So had to give it out to Clint Hearn for that one from Hanover. That was an exciting finish for the Panther season. JB, let us just you gave us a little bit of insight here, but let's go bracket by bracket essentially and see what's left here. Well, what's left is 16 games. So we go into what is the traditional round of 32 scenario at this point, with an untraditional way of getting there, obviously. But you look at some of these scores from week one, and you kind of learn some things, in other ways you learn nothing from these. So, St. John's Lacrosse, we knew that was going to be the game. Okay, there's no shock there. And Lacrosse being the team that St. John's has to face first, if I'm, out there as a Johnny's fan, I'm pretty ticked because this is not a conventional play-in team. Okay, this is crazy in some ways. The top level. We're protecting the number 1 seed here, folks? Really? This is protection?
Yeah, with the number 20 ranked team in the country? Nope.
So St. John's has a real challenge in front of them. Hobart, Susquehanna, the game I'll be attending, somehow it's going to be colder in Selinsgrove than it will be in Springfield. So I'm going to pay the price for that. Yeah, it's going to be 35. It'll be 41 in Springfield.
Brr.
Yeah. Moving south does not get warmer around these parts for some reason. But we're going to be there. I think there are going to be a couple coaches that we're friends with that are going to be there. I got notes from during this weekend. And so maybe we'll get a little pregame show of some sort with some coaching thoughts there. I won't have you there, so I'll get a couple coaches instead. Next best thing, right? Some elite coaches, as far as I'm concerned.
Elite, indeed.
Platteville at Wartburg. This is one of the two matchups that we're keyed in on as why are we putting such high NPI ranked teams against each other? So this is another kind of head scratcher that game is being played in this way at Wartburg. A lot of folks in the WEAC do not like the fact that the two teams in the WEAC that are in the playoffs still, or they're in playoffs at all, are on the road. So this vaunted conference, that's the WEAC, it has two teams only in these playoffs, and they're both on the road. And yet the SAA had three teams, two of which host and lose on week one. And so you begin to see where some of the conversations are going to go later on about this whole thing, because the WEAC's going to claim, and probably rightfully so, that the strength of schedule scenario is not being adopted properly inside the current dials, or maybe other things need to be put in there. And so we'll see how this plays out. If both of these road teams are able to win, I think the WEAC's going to basically own the narrative going forward about how this needs to change. So we'll see. So I key in on that stuff for that reason. Bethel at Lake Forest, it's Lake Forest at Bethel. Intentional mistake there. But, this is interesting because the Midwest Conference is not very well looked upon. St. Norbert's beating Monmouth in the bowl game does not help matters in that. Do you give Lake Forest even a chance here?
I mean, any team that has a guy like A.J. Jackson has a chance, Frank, I think. It'll be something to see, how the Bethel defense tries to scheme around that. I mean, they looked pretty tough against Co, but they still gave up 25 points. So the Royals can be scored on, and there's certainly enough offensive firepower with the Foresters for them to get on the board here. But yeah, I'd say Bethel probably goes into this one as a favorite.
Then we'll go lower left. Endicott at Cortland, a rematch of the first round game last year that was down to the wire. And look, Cortland's had 3 close calls this season. I would not be shocked if we're sitting here a week later and saying, well, Endicott's beaten Cortland and we have a new national champion on the horizon this year. I mean, Endicott is no slouch. It's being played at Cortland this time, whereas last year there was controversy about the fact that Endicott hosted the game. So the host site flips, but nonetheless, we'll see. That should be a very good game. I do not discount that game. Susquehanna Hobart just has a little bit of interesting appeal to me, and but it's a coin flip between that Cortland Endicott game also and the Springfield Mass Dartmouth game as to what I would attend. I wish they were at different times so I could get to all 3 if I could, and then get no sleep for the rest of the weekend. But instead, Mass Dartmouth at Springfield, that second game of the close NPI, upper NPIs having to face each other. And more maddening is it's two 10-0 teams. And I thought we had tried to, avoid this. There weren't that many undefeated teams this year, and yet we're putting two of them into the same game. And it's not even involving a play-in. This is the way it got scheduled. Aurora, I hope you pinpointed earlier. Very compelling game. Aurora is a team that I had stated early on this season after the Week 2 game, and I think I've said it on this show, that if that game versus North Central is played in Week 10 or Week 11, it would be an entirely different game the way it would play out, because you could tell Aurora had some very good pieces. It just hadn't come together yet the right way. And now looks like they're rolling the way they're supposed to be. So I have a feeling this could be very, very interesting versus Hope, who had a great season so far. And Whitworth at North Central, ultimately we could get that rematch of Aurora North Central if both of them get through their respective games here. But, again, I will ask you the same question I had about the Bethel Lake Forest game. Do you really give Whitworth much of a chance here? It just seems like they've kind of were limping their way into the playoffs. We're lucky to beat Pomona Pitzer, and ultimately here, this is a huge stage. Can they do it with house money? Yeah, I mean, what's the mentality you go into with this game?
I just think you have to try to get through the first quarter and make sure it's not 21-0. It's just going to be an onslaught. North Central is very determined after what happened last season to kind of get back and reclaim their head of the table, top of the mountain status. And so, they're going to come out blazing. Luke Lennon and company will be ready to go. And if the Pirates have any hopes to be competitive in this game, they're going to have to try and force a few punts early on. Otherwise, they could be looking at a huge deficit and playing catch up, and we all know how that goes.
Yeah. Yes, we do. Okay, let's go to the next bracket we'll look at here, the round 3 rematch. Jake Wright impressed me on Saturday. He may not have had gaudy numbers or anything like that, but he's built different. He really is. He reminds me a little bit more of a Kyle King type in terms of willing to take the hits, and he's built more durably than Kyle King is, from what I could see. And he was, and we learned this in the press conference. He was supposed to probably be one of the starters, if not the starter, until he gets injured the Tuesday before the Bethel, Tennessee game for Mary Hardin Baylor. Now, he did get experience from the first time he played Hardin Simmons, which was round 2, but obviously he had not had the reps level because of the injury and everything, maybe to be effective. With Asa Osborne and him right now beginning to come into their own, this game could play out very differently. Doesn't mean that Hardin Simmons loses, but it means to me that this plays out much more competitively than the first 2 goes of this game. Now, of course, Hardin Simmons fans, if this game were to go Mary Hardin Baylor's way, would say, how is this fair? We win 2 times, they win once, and they continue in the playoffs at that point. But so goes the way this whole thing rolls. And I was actually happy about what Greg and Pat had to say on Around the Nation. Pat and I had talked about it this weekend, about some of the comments from Larry Harmon about the whole intramurals quote and whatnot. And, Larry Harmon, not one to be shy with his words, but, he also doesn't want to be a guy to get that kind of attention from it. But I think it necessitates the discussion of, are we basically dumbing down the process just to get a playoff bid so that we end up with 6-team conferences all over the place or worse? And, suddenly you're just playing for a Pool C bid with a 9-1 record or 8-2 record or 7-2 or 6-2 or whatever it could be ultimately. It was an interesting discussion, and I'm glad that Pat and Greg didn't chide him for what he said, but it actually supported the intention behind it as well. So a lot to be learned. We don't want to lose the 4 teams in the ASC to other divisions at this point, and that's the whole key to where this discussion comes from. We'll see. TLU at Linfield. Who's TLU in terms of, is this team a strong team? Is it not? Trinity loses to them, but Trinity wasn't themselves probably at the point of the season, the beginning, where they lose to them. I mean, do you have faith in a TLU team going out to Linfield, even, putting up enough points to be competitive in that game, or do you think Linfield just stomps on them? Here's a preview, I guess, to Friday's show, but I mean, what is your take? You've seen a little bit more of them than I have, I think, in terms of watching some of their games.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have played a pretty decent schedule. I mean, although they do have that sort of round robin type deal, so in a way their record is padded. So it's hard to say, but McMurray was a good team. They played Hardin Simmons tough. Like you said, they did beat Trinity in week 1. It was a long time ago. I just don't. It's hard to say. I think that. I don't think this is going to be like an Oshkosh kind of game for Linfield. I mean, they've been beating teams pretty handily for a while, so I could see it being kind of similar to the Whitworth game. Like a 20-something point win. So maybe they'll get off to a good start and keep it competitive for a little while. But I just think that the Wildcats have a little too much firepower.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting thing. That Southwestern game spooked a lot of people, though, having to go to overtime to win it, coming from behind in the fourth by Texas Lutheran. Grove City at Johns Hopkins, another compelling matchup, to say the least. Grove City going to be fully on the road, it looks like, if they proceed down the playoffs, because they'd have to go most likely to DePauw. Although Maryville, look, you know what? Maryville beats a Berry team that DePauw beat, although DePauw handily beat Berry, if I remember correctly, earlier in the season. So
or something like that,
it would tell you that DePauw definitely has an edge in this game. But hey, Maryville is playing with house money. There's got to be that mentality going into this whole thing, because nobody is giving them a chance. We talked about it earlier. It's house money time for Maryville. Even if they're not talking that way, you should be, because when you play with house money mentality, I think you have this certain level of carefree. If we lose the game, we lose the game. Okay, we've had a hell of a season so far, and so just go have fun with it. And sometimes when you do that, you can actually stay in a game and stay close enough to go win the darn thing, and without the anxiety level that would sometimes work against you. So that's why we talk about playing with house money in situations like these, and Maryville should. I honestly believe that is the way you handle a game like this. But we'll see. DePauw, obviously a pretty strong team, but Wabash losing in the Open Doors Bowl makes you wonder about the NCAC and how things play out. We'll go to the final quadrant here. Washington Jefferson at Randolph-Macon. An important game in terms of justification for three teams for the pack here, in my mind. The Grove City at Johns Hopkins game should play out well. The Washington Jefferson and Randolph-Macon game, we've had questions about who Randolph-Macon's been at certain points early in the season. They have seemed to put it back together again. W&J obviously has played a consistent level of football, very close against Carnegie Mellon, in what was it, the overtime game between those two, right? And they seem to have rolled, but I don't know. At Randolph-Macon, never easy place to play because of how close it stands, and the confines are that stadium. It's a very different place to play. Any thoughts going into the our Friday show about this one that you want to start telling people about?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to boil down to what the Yellow Jackets can do about this quarterback for the Presidents. Pugh has had some gaudy statistics, close to 3,000 yards passing, 20, 30-something touchdowns. I mean, he's one of the few guys, I think, in all levels of football that's been kind of ranked in like the top 5 or 10 as far as certain passing statistics are concerned. And then on the flip side, you've got defensive linemen like Dietz for the Presidents who could really give, this Yellow Jackets offense a hard time. So I have it's interesting. What I've been seeing out there is that the Pac teams are actually, even though they're on the road, they're listed as favorites. It's a little different with Carnegie Mellon hosting Center. That's an obvious favorite situation because Center really shouldn't have even gotten into the second round automatically like they did. But these two road games with Grove City and W&J, I believe, they're viewed as at least touchdown favorites in these games, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, Kings of Salisbury. Salisbury's got a lot to prove. This is their bracket ultimately. In terms of rankings. The center at Carnegie Mellon. You raise it well. I'm not going to touch on that beyond saying you're right. And I don't. After what the SAA's performance was in the first round, center is the only thing that can save it at this point. And it's not going to be easy against Carnegie Mellon. The SAA could go 0-3 in the playoffs, which is the first time we could say that in history, I think, of an NCAA bracket of one conference. That is not the history you want to go down for as a conference, ultimately. So we'll see how it goes. And the rematch, John Carroll, Mount Union, compelling. Obviously, we may be seeing a change of quarterback compared to the first game because of the injury. I don't know what to expect here. John Carroll is clearly humming along right now. A very good win against Marietta. Really, really good win against Mount St. Joseph. Mount Union, our friend over at Third Division keeps wanting to promote this idea. If they lose in this game, it's the first time we have a winless postseason in 30 years, whatever it is. Don't talk that way, because that's the way to get the bear awoken, I think, out there. Any final thoughts on that last?
Well, we see this with Mount Union all the time, and it happened in the Marietta game. It looked like their goose was cooked, and they somehow managed to come up with this touchdown drive when they really need it. The Purple Raiders have just been doing this for so long that if this game is close, you almost have to expect them to win. And I think even in the back of the minds of the John Carroll guys, they're going to be like, okay, how are they going to pull this off? But, it should be an exciting matchup. John Carroll does seem to be sort of peaking at the right time. So if there was a chance for them to knock off the Purple Raiders, this is it. This could be the best game of the weekend, potentially. And when I'm looking at the the 32, 23 of the teams in this pool right now are in the top 25 of the D3 football poll. So we are really kind of getting down to the best of the best here. There are a few games where there's a ranked team playing an unranked team, but they're just kind of probably on the cusp of that top 25. So with a few exceptions, this is a great slate of games. What sucks is that 10 of them kick off at noon, and then 5 kick off at 1. And then there's the one game at 3 o'clock. If this was spread out a little better, it would be a lot more fun to watch, because you're trying to flip between 10 games at noon and then have 15 games going on concurrently between 1:30 and 3 is going to be, you'd have to have a million devices to keep an eye on all of these. So that's the one downside to this playoff situation. But when you look at the numbers, 16 versus 1, 10 versus 2, 20 versus 3, you've got 24 versus 5, you've got 8 versus 11, 12 versus 21, you've got 14 versus 15. That's going to be some great matchups.
I hear you. I wonder if there's not a way to begin to do an 11-1-3 approach, 11 a.m., 1 p.m., 3 p.m., just to get a staggering of games. And obviously the 3 p.m.s would be out toward the Central and West Coast, and for teams that have lights, you'd have to begin to compute into that too. But you're absolutely right that we're not taking into consideration, probably in the best possible ways, the ways to showcase these games. And we're looking to showcase them on ESPN Plus the way we are, which is a bone of contention for SIDs across the nation. I mean, I've never seen SIDs have to work together so much as to get these encoders to work and everything else, the graphics packages and all that stuff, with no notice or no real warning here. So I feel for them in trying to work with that. Some of them use more official TV crews out there and have the ability to, kind of hand it off to people that know how to do it, but others don't. And I think Kings was the example that we had this week of those that just couldn't, for some reason, get it to work right with no, watermarking of the ESPN Plus even, or graphics of any sort on the screen for that one. And others just chose to use their own graphics instead of the score strip that we saw in cases like the Endicott game, and also the Trinity game, I believe, as well, used the correct graphics packages there. So we're getting a real mishmash on this. But why don't we utilize this whole ESPN Plus principle to get these games rolling in a way to maybe have 4 slots of 4 games each somehow, some way, if we could pull it off. And even sliding them into the morning, 11 a.m. is not horrible once you get to this time of year to kick off a game on the East Coast. So we'll see. Folks, no reason to belabor this any further. Here's our 1 hour mark just about. But remember, we are going to have a Friday live show. We'll figure out something, some way to get some guests on. But in the meantime, happiest and safest of Thanksgivings to all of you out there. Thanks for joining us. We hope these 32 teams enjoy their Thanksgivings together, because normally it's only 16 at this point. And we'll see how this goes. Some really great, compelling games. And I only get to cover one. JB will cover all of them from his home down in Orlando, or Winter Park area. Yep, ta-da! And great advertisement of your company there, buddy. But I'm advertising Joe Rapetti, Nate Milne and Company. Congratulations on your bowl win, Joe, as you conclude your career. We talked about Giovanni Weeks, but I'm going to talk about Joe Rapetti in that respect, and how awesome a quarterback and guy he is as well. And we are thrilled that he was able to end on that note. We'll talk to you soon, folks. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.